Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Road to Grandmaster series. This is episode number 43. In this series, I take you behind the scenes to the training and the over-the-board tournament recaps that are required to achieve the Grandmaster title. Yesterday, I started my fourth tournament back in action. I'm currently playing a 10-player round-robin tournament here in New York City. So it's kind of nice. I get to come home and see my wife, see my baby dog, and I don't have to travel across the world. And I'm going to be covering game number one for you. Also, for the duration of the tournament, considering it's on Labor Day, which is a big deal here in the US, all courses on Chessly, my educational platform, are 33% off. Let's get into the first game. Actually, in this game, I'm playing somebody I played many, many times. Jurabek Kamrakulov. He's a strong grandmaster, and I've played him probably 5 or 6 times, and even in preparing for him, I remembered a game that I played in 2019. I didn't even remember this game happened. So I have like a lightning bolt that goes off in 2020 after the pandemic. When I started this channel, I barely remember anything that came before it. Any of you feel that way? Like there was like a schism or whatever, like in the universe, and you just can't remember anything pre-pandemic. Now, Jurabek is an interesting guy because, okay, his FIDE rating is like 2490, 2500. He has had a few bad games recently with black when I was preparing for him. And with white, he's just kind of an e4 guy. He just plays e4. He plays all the same openings all the time, which means he's obviously pretty good at chess because he doesn't care that his opponents know all his openings. But with black, I felt he was kind of a sitting duck. Like, I looked at his opening repertoire. I honestly wasn't that impressed. And I don't know. I just I felt good about the game. I felt pretty good about the game. So I opened up with c4. Now, he has had some games recently where he plays the Queen's Gambit accepted, which obviously against c4 you can't play. c4, e5 is extremely dynamic. And obviously if you're a c4 player, e5, white needs to know either the 2 knights or g3 or whatever. I actually predicted that he was going to go e6. Because he played it in the conclusion of a recent tournament, and actually against, I would call him a friend of mine, Mr. Akira Nakata, who has been covered on this channel. I've played him. And Akira played g3, so I thought about playing g3, and I ultimately decided to play e3 because I played this exact system already on this channel before, and I wanted to build up some practical experience again. So against Savinovich, if you remember that game as part of this series, he went here. I didn't know what Jurabek was going to do. He played bishop to d6. Now, bishop to d6 is a little bit more aggressive than putting the bishop in a Queen's Gambit decline sense on e7. And what this usually indicates is black wants to put the bishop on b7 and the knight on d7. And white has a handful of approaches here, but I knew them, and I went b3, b6, takes, and now I changed my approach, and I went for g3 instead. And this has been played many times. It has been played by the biggest practitioner of this is Vincent Keimer from Germany, and I have been studying his games and just watching how effortless he makes it look. So I was feeling quite happy. He played bishop to b7. At this point, him spending 5 minutes here was kind of a good sign. Bishop b7. I went bishop to g2, and I'm just going to set up a double fianchetto. I'm going to castle. I'm going to play knight e2, knight to f4, and I'm going to play on the c file. So I was very happy here. Again, I looked at his repertoire pre-tournament, and I thought, this is what I'm going to go for. I played it online a bit on my secret accounts. You got to get a little practical practice in. And I was very thrilled. Knight bd7. Now, the reason he's delaying his castling, there are some positions where if you wait long enough with black and white does something stupid, you can get a better version of the position. I didn't do that, though. I just improved. Now he has to castle. If he doesn't castle, I'm going to go knight h4, knight d4. I'm going to put my knight on f. He's going to be in some trouble, so he has to castle. And again, I'm still not thinking. I know the rook has to go to c1, and he goes rook e8, and I know the rook has to go to e1, right? The reason why the rook has to go to e1, I think, is because after c5 d4, there is no c4 anymore, because my pawn has a nice support. So for example, take, I have e4. That's what I think. And after knight takes e4, apparently I can sack the rook. I guess it technically doesn't. Oh, no, it does, because I suppose I don't know. But I have tricks like this, and his rook gets trapped. And so rook e1 makes sense. Plus, there are positions where the rook actually goes to join the other rook on c5. Like, again, I knew all of this. And he started thinking. And I think he started thinking because he didn't really want to touch his queenside pawns, because he knows, the second he goes c5, I'm looking to make this trade. Although it's a game, right? And then he can consider whether he's going to put his knight here or what. He played a move here, which I have never seen before. Played knight to e5. It's obviously not a bad move. But at this point, I'm trying to figure things out, right? So I take my first long think of the game. And essentially here, I was looking at 3 moves. And they're all the top line of the engine. So, still playing very well. They are trading the knight and then deciding what to do next. They are just playing pawn to d3. Pawn to d3 prevents knight to d3, right? So, like, we got to remember, he's trying to make a trade to open up his position. And then another idea was, like, stopping knight to d3 and also playing on the c-file. Now, I had a moment here where I had a pretty clear plan of action, which is I'm going to trade, and then I'm going to continue to play my position, because I thought this exchange leaves me with the open diagonal and the better bishop. He can't move his center pawn, so I have the better bishop. And then, of course, I can decide what to do next. The move I don't want to play and rush is d4, because I just blocked my bishop. A concept that I am familiar here with is trading off that bishop. So, for example, knight a4 or queen c2, knight e2. And positionally, white has an advantage here because, again, white has the c-file and white has the better bishop. He can't move his bishop. And my bishop is pressuring and can always rotate. And then the knight is going to re-enter the game. And I'm going to double my rooks on the c-file. Maybe even triple with my queen. And the second he goes c5, I'm going to attack it with d4 and b4 in different positions. So that was idea number 1. Idea number 2 was like, coach sometimes will tell me, if you trade the pieces, you make your opponent's defense easier. Like, maybe trading is actually going to make things easier for him, and I should just keep the tension. Now, in some ways, this doesn't really make... I mean, he could just go here. So now we have the same position, kind of, except I went here. I'm not really sure if it's an improving move. Also, my bishop is, like, away from my king here. So, I don't know. I didn't really know if d3 was such a good move, or queen c2. So here I was like, all right, look, I'm going to take. Maybe 10 minutes here is not great, but I thought it was a pretty smart investment of time just to weigh all my options. And then here I went queen c2. Now, what's funny is that this exact position, I didn't know that. I looked after. Has been reached in a game. Grandmaster Liam Vrolik from the Netherlands played it in, I don't remember, 2023 or 2021. And his plan was very simple. And it was actually my plan in the game. When I went queen to c2, my next move was going to be knight e2. So I wanted to initiate this exchange to get a strong piece out of the center. I wanted this pawn to have less defenders. And my queen replaces my bishop, and my knight, which probably was not going to have any success here, is going to go to f4. To put pressure on this, and obviously g5 is a bad move because it just weakens his king and he can't move his pawn backwards. That was my plan. I was very happy with my plan. So I went queen c2. I thought I'm chilling. I am chilling. And so here I was sitting there for a moment, and I was considering, like, what is he going to do, right? So if he goes c5, right, I'm still going to go knight e2. He still can't move his pawn. If he declines a trade with me, now I go d4 with a lot of support, and I have the c-file pressure, so I'm very happy. And in my mind, I thought a pretty natural move here for black is to play queen to d7 and try to finish your development, try to bring the second rook. Maybe even put your queen somewhere out here in the future. But and he went queen d7. As you can see, he spent 13 minutes. I mean, he was clearly deciding on many, many different things. And it does stop me from ever playing queen f5. Now, I can still go knight e2. In fact, for simplicity's sake, that's probably the move that I should have played. Now, there is a very deep move here. And the longer you let the computer think, the better it thinks it is. It's a pretty high-level move. I didn't consider it at all. And I probably should have. It's an instructive move, and I'm learning a lot from it. It's the move b4, which is a really fascinating move. The point of b4 is basically now black will never successfully play c5. Like originally c5, I needed to come up with d4, but now c5 is just a bad move because it permanently weakens the position, and knight a4 just loses control. Like I have knight c5, I'm going to get the bishop. My bishop is then a monster. Like for example, I win a pawn at the very least, right? So b4 is a high-level move. I mean, it could be in a book, really. And then I actually change my plan and I expand and I pressure with my queen as well. It's just an improving move. That's literally all it is. And it's got no long-term, long-term, I don't know. It's not like I need to now change the rest of the game and play here. No, I just kind of like prevent his moves. I play like b5 and I create like a permanent weakness. And yeah, it's a move designed to prevent him from gaining any space. And if he tries, he weakens his position a lot. I didn't consider b4 at all. And that just shows that I still have room to grow. And also, I need to gain more experience in these positions. Now, what I did consider was a plan that I thought was very strong, which turned out not to be strong. Happens. Here's what I thought. Queen d7 is an inaccuracy because now I don't need to enter this position, which is perfectly safe and reasonable. Now I'm going to use the fact that the queen no longer defends the knight. And I'm going to play f4. Now, position is still equal. I thought this was a very smart plan. So, of course, he's not going to take because this gives me this, which even here the engine thinks is equal, which I find nuts. But, bishop d6. And now knight e2. And when I saw this plan, I hadn't seen it in games, but I thought, meaning I didn't have, Vincent Keimer played like this once. No. So I could have probably just played safely. But I thought, I'm threatening to open his king and permanently ruin his pawn structure over there. So he probably needs to do something about it. Now, if he moves his knight, he just helps me improve my position. And so what my plan now was going to be is just put my knight on d4, keep rotating. I gain some space, and now we keep improving our position. Another thing that I thought of was that if he goes back and plays defense, I'm going to get my queen to f5. And another plan I thought of is that I have knight d4, and I might be able to play knight f3 and put my knight on e5, which is from c3 was a pipe dream. And I thought, dude, look at this bishop. Like, that bishop is now a monster. I mean, that bishop is going to be a major, major part of this game. Well, as we see, it's not the best plan, but I thought it was a good plan. Then as I played knight e2, I started thinking, what if he just lets me take? Can he do that? It didn't really occur to me. And it's not the best move, but yeah, he played c5. He kind of like said, all right, you want to do this? Let's do this. I didn't think it was, I was like, there's no way this is good. I mean, he gets the bishop pair, but his pawns, look at his pawns. Open king, look at his pawns. And yeah, I have an advantage here. but it's not so clear where it is. Now, here's something funny, okay? Weak pawn, right? Bad knight. So, of course, you play knight c3. And you force him to move out of the center, right? Force him to get out of here to defend this pawn. Now, there is a plan here by white, which I vaguely considered, but which felt... Okay, I'm going to show it to you. It's king to f2. I feel like if you seriously consider king f2 and knight g1, and the idea, by the way, is like knight g1, bishop h3, which makes some sense if there's like something to be won on the diagonal. But I looked at this and was like, what? Why would I ever? Right? Like, but again, it has to happen at the right moment. You know, like to me, I felt knight c3 was pretty human. And at this point, I wanted to bring my queen here. That was one of my ideas. But another idea, which I thought was strong for me, was he's going backwards. Let me go forward. Let me walk him down. Let me make this trade in the center of the board. And I spent 12 minutes here because I didn't really see much else. I mean, I saw knight to a4. I thought he can just defend himself. Yeah, as it turns out, like now I make a run to the light squares and I just slowly put some pressure on him. I considered knight a4. Knight a4. I didn't really consider knight a4, queen d1. I considered knight a4, queen f5, which I rejected because I thought he can just trade queens. But after takes, wow, d4 is the key idea, and I can get a nice advantage. To change plans and actually just try to create this weakness and also play something like rook to c7 in the future with still nagging pressure on b6. But I played e4, and here's what's funny. I have two friends, not like total, I think total is like 5, but I have two friends who are strong chess players, and they both told me that they saw me play e4 and thought I was, quote, cooking. Which for the audience above the age of like 13 means, you know, you thought you're doing well. I thought I was doing well. If d4, my plan here was to jump the knight somewhere. Like, even if I go to d5, I thought I have an advantage forever. My pawn is really strong. My king is really safe. A move I thought he really couldn't do so easily was pawn takes on e4. And the reason for that is my plan from a distance had been, okay, I'm going to take. I'm attacking the bishop and the pawn. So naturally, he should take. And then I'm going to go knight here with the threat on f6. He'll play something like bishop to g7. And, you know, here I'm going to like double my rooks, play on the light squares, try to put my knight on d5. Yeah, this is just worse for white. I just misevaluated the position. I don't know. I have no explanation other than that. I really thought my position was kind of nice here. I thought I just put everything on a light square, so his bishop is completely obsolete. Okay, he has f5, but I thought it's always a target. His pawn structure is bad. Now, when you know it's -1, it's easy to sit there and try to explain all the ways it's -1. I still can't really quite understand how it's -1. Like, the ego in me still thinks that from this position, I would do okay. My backup plan also had been to just take with the knight, creating threats. And then suddenly I was like, I don't really have any threats. And he's going to play f5 and bishop d4. So here bad things started happening. He took. Now, you would think that when the guy spends 12 minutes to play e4, he has a move ready. Well, here I spent another 20. Because as I sat there calculating, I realized it's not so clear. And here I calculated, for example, queen d4, king g2, and he can actually win the game by giving up his rook. And f5. So then I needed to realize that I can probably play king f1, and also I can probably play rook e3. I needed to be sure about that, and I calculated a lot. I spent 20 minutes, I played my move, and I looked at the board and went, yo, what about c4 and bishop c5? I spent so much looking at f5, bishop g7. I didn't even look at c4. And again, some of you may realize he's giving up a pawn with check. But in doing that, this bishop gets really strong, and I, lose control of the center. And he played c4 in a minute. Now, it's been talked about on this channel, the concept of 2 mistakes in a row, right? I felt really dumb here because I had just gotten done thinking, look at me playing so intelligently, damaging his pawns, pressuring his center. I'm up on time. All of a sudden, I'm like, wait a minute, nothing is as it seems. And now here comes c4. Like, I just spent 30 minutes playing 3 moves, 2 moves even, and I missed c4. I just got to get better at, calculation. I mean, that's really it. And what can I say? I mean, you can't really make excuses. C4 is a smart idea. It's to play bishop c5, and I guess when you're on the other side, and maybe it's easy to miss because the pawn is hanging with a check. So here I entered a panic mode because I thought, oh, I'm just gonna lose. Like, if I take on h7 and he goes king h8, I lose because he's gonna play bishop c5, queen d4. I mean, he's just gonna completely crush me. The idea is also, I no longer have king f1 because he has queen h3. This is the devastating thing. And what he wants, again, is he wants to sack the rook and then play f5. And this is losing for white because he gets 2 bishops and a very powerful attack from my rook. That's why this is losing. So that's the idea of c4. Now, I spent 15 minutes here and I played the best move. In fact, I went for the best plan, which I am happy about. But I'm unhappy about the fact that it took me 15 minutes, another 15 minutes to settle my nerves. And yes, there is this concept of remember, you miss a move and then you just panic. And Levy 1.0 would have definitely panicked somewhere here. I did panic somewhere here. But then I gathered myself and I calculated bishop to b7, which is the best move. Bishop c5 check. And now my original plan here had been to play king f1. And again, I had spent a lot of time looking at king f1, queen h3, ignoring my bishop. And it looks like I mated. And if I play knight e2, he sacks the rook. And I can't take because it's mate. And if this check here, queen c4, queen f1, and I lose the game, which I calculated. I mean, I was calculating pretty decently. Then I realized I can actually walk my king to h3, and this is the only way to survive. Queen d7 check, and I play this move pawn to f5. Now, of course, I'm threatening to take his pawn, so he goes takes. And I'm worse, but I didn't see by how much, and I still have 8 minutes on the clock. So here, I actually did a flip. So I was very negative when I missed c4, but then I gathered myself, and I realized, you know what? This is not that bad. It's a very imbalanced position with the pawns and knight versus bishop, but it's not that bad, right? CB, AB, and now 18 minutes versus 8, anything can happen. I mean, I don't think he's going to play this the best way, and guess what? He doesn't. He immediately plays not the best way. The best move here is h5 to just kind of try to control g4. I don't really understand h5. Like, it just seems like it's going to be a weakness. Engine is stronger than human. He goes here, and I immediately realized that the best move here, of course, is to trade 1 rook and bring my bad rook into the game. So now I'm thinking f5 is protected, rook f4 is on the way, I can go for b4 ideas, I can put my knight somewhere, and here he plays bishop d4, and immediately I'm like, wait a minute, I just pinned him. Now I threaten a6, and this is pinned, and I completely made a comeback. I mean, it's back to equal. Like, I equalized. I knew right here something went wrong for him. And that's why he played a5 in 5 minutes. Now it's 7-10. Now it's a game. Unfortunately, Here, I almost felt like deer in headlights. It's not, I wouldn't say I relaxed because I equalized. For some reason, I thought now it's my time to prove something, because I can tell he's not playing the best moves. So I thought about knight to b5. I thought about knight to e2. I thought about knight to e4 threatening knight takes f6. I thought about knight a4 trying to take this pawn. I didn't know what to choose, and I played this move with 2.5 minutes on the clock, so I get up to 3 minutes. And, I thought rook f4 made sense because I'm seeing all these ways to attack his king. Yeah, I should have went knight e2, rook d8, and then here, I shouldn't rush into the endgame. Like, this endgame is probably bad because he has so much activity. But maybe I can play like queen f3 and threaten some stuff over here. No, apparently not. He has queen d2. So I still have to be precise. Like here, I now need to play queen f3, and then here I need to go for d4. I went rook f4, rook d8, and I thought rook g4 is a smart move. It's not. I thought throwing in a check was smart. He just actually moves his king to the middle, which I thought, well, I was like, what? He's just leaving this pawn? I guess it makes sense, because otherwise his king gets cut off. And now was my final moment. I needed to play knight to e2. And then I needed to trade queens, push him out. I saw this line, but somehow I thought he has a very powerful pawn majority. Like if I play knight c3, he's targeting my pieces. He has rook d5 ideas. My king is offside. He's going to go here. And I thought, well, I'm not sure if I want to enter the endgame, so let me play queen f3. And queen f3 is just straight up a bad move because he goes bishop e5. And now my pawn is just going to be lost. If I try to protect it, he plays queen d3. Now I have no time. As you can see, I'm making all these moves with seconds on the clock. I made this move with 2 seconds. He swarms in. And here I thought I'm sacrificing the knight, but at least I have a check. And then I have an attack. No, he has queen f1. My queen stops protecting the f1 square. And, okay, it's a mistake made in time trouble. I thought I'm getting in, but he has queen f1 stuff. So I resigned. And he played this game, according to the engine, 98% accurate. This is a humbling game. I've played, like I said, I've played Jurabek a few times. I've drawn him a couple times. I've never beaten him. He beat me once or twice. And before this game, I felt good. And even in this game, I felt good. I felt good until he took my pawn. Which is kind of ironic because I didn't have to offer him the pawn trade. I misevaluated a position. And then that led to a series of very slow moves. Right? Then I missed a move, and now suddenly I've got 10 minutes on the clock. So you go back to move 16, I have 103. This is not a good spending of time. Right? It's not a good spending of time. It's not the best, not the cleanest calculations. I still made a comeback. I mean, I still managed to equalize the game. And then here I simply, under the pressure of 7 minutes, under the pressure of the situation, I couldn't decide what the best plan was. And evidently it was not this. This is not where my rook belonged. My rook needed to be ready to infiltrate on the side. I thought my rook needed to at least temporarily defend my pawn, and I just chose wrong. Just chose the wrong plan. And that is life. Another instructive thing is, in these positions, I don't think I should be looking for this kind of a dynamic position play and imbalance. b4 is very smart, but even something like knight to e2, and even something like knight a4 without even moving the queen is very interesting. And I'm gonna learn it. I'm gonna learn it for the future. I'm gonna have games like this in the future. Yeah, I mean, lessons learned, and a good lesson against the player who is better than me for now. I really thought this was a good game, that this was going to be a good start to the tournament, like at minimum a draw. Just to speak on the statistics, it's actually the first game I've lost with white. It's actually the first game I lost to a GM as well. But it's like my wife told me, you're not going to have a good result in every single game that you play. That would be unfathomable. So you're going to probably have some bad results. And this is a loss, and I will learn from it. And We got 8 more games to go. That's all I have for you. Friendly reminder, there's a courses sale. Maybe you don't want to investigate after checking this game out, but I will remind you anyway. Get out of here.